Welcome back to the Growing Together podcast with me, Sunny Vasquez.
And me, Cesar Santos.
A podcast where we talk about everything under the sun related to growth and becoming the best version of yourself. Today's episode, I wanted to talk about an idea that I got while we were in Florida from one of my best friends, since we were middle school. Her name is Molly, and she kind of gave me the idea. And so today's episode is going to be about growing pains.
Okay.
But before we get into it, how are you this morning, Caesar? Of course, my sister literally calls me.
Twin telepathy.
Yeah. How are you doing this morning?
This morning. Pretty good. I mean, I just got done editing my reel, so I'll be posting that up on my YouTube channel, as well as showcasing it on other platforms and other social media websites to get more work and possibly get a really good amount of work in.
Yeah.
Which is what I'm doing now.
If anyone needs a video editor, Caesar is incredible. His work, you can also he's obviously going to be posting his reel, but his work you can also see on his YouTube channel. He edits these podcasts. He has a wide knowledge of just editing and all the things you need to edit: Adobe Premiere, Audition,
After Effects,
DaVinci He's
Resolve,
getting into Photoshop, DaVinci Resolve. So if you need an editor, or you know anyone who needs an editor, Caesar's the man. Because a freelance hustle is hard, especially when you're trying to make it a full-time thing. So Caesar appreciates any
comments,
any connections you can lead him to.
Drop them somewhere in the comments or reach out to me directly.
Yeah. Exactly. But yeah, we got back from Florida this past week on Tuesday night, technically, from my sister's wedding. We were only in Florida for 5 days, so it was a very short trip. I'm glad we could make it possible, because honestly, we probably wouldn't have been able to go if my sister didn't pay to have us.
Yeah, I know, for real.
Out there. It's just flights are expensive right now, and just life's crazy. So I'm glad that we were able to go. We were able to shoot her wedding, and also I was able to get some pictures of the day. So that was really exciting. And then we were just thrown back into work. I mean, after vacation, getting back to work can be so difficult, and getting back into routine. Mm-hmm. So that was my struggle this week, trying to not be exhausted and not on vacation mode. But yeah, I wanted to talk about growing pains because I feel obviously growing pains relates to a couple different things. You have physical growing pains, when you're growing and developing, and your body's it sounds so weird. Your body's changing.
Yeah.
But I remember when I was young, I used to get the worst growing pains in my knee area, and my mom thought I was being dramatic because I would literally fall to the floor. It hurt so bad. It was this awful pain in my leg, and the only way people could describe it is oh, it's just growing pains. It's just growing pains, as if oh, that makes it any better. It's just growing pains. But yeah, there was this one time I fell in the middle of the street. You remember that plaza we were in Florida with the Tres Leches place?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was in that plaza that I fell in the middle of the street because my legs, my knees hurt. It felt like my leg just buckled, because I was in so much pain, and then all it was growing pains.
Dang.
But I think it's kind of symbolic too, is because when you're growing and you're, entering different eras in your life, you can often experience this kind of uncomfortable period where you kind of just, sometimes you don't know what you're doing, or it's just really different and uncomfortable for you. Can you speak to that? Have you ever experienced that?
I mean, man, this past few weeks, I feel that's kind of, actually a few months have been kind of like that, just constantly trying to find, trying to get, for example, trying to get better at, what I do now.
Yeah.
Since I've had a few months now of trying different types of editing techniques, platforms, different styles, finding out how to create my own templates when it comes to video editing. Photoshop has been like really cool. I've learned pretty much, like I can pretty much do almost anything when it comes to designing thumbnails, and like that was difficult, like trying to learn something that I wasn't comfortable with in the first place.
Yeah. It's often, you often go in with like a hesitation, like of like, how valuable is this going to be for me if I can? And even when you know it's going to be valuable, it's kind of like overwhelming. The idea of like, how much time is this going to take? And do I have the time to learn this? And like, will it pay off? Is kind of like, I think that applies to a lot of areas of our life when I feel, for instance, like when I got out of college, it was obviously it's a whole new chapter of your life, You're now entering like what they say is like the real world, You're an adult now. I feel like I had the benefit of growing up a little bit in college because I was mainly providing for myself, and I had a full-time job, and so I was kind of used to like some of those adult responsibilities, but it still was hard when it was like, okay, you're graduated from college, you're done with school, now you really've got to figure out what your life is going to look like. And I think that's something that no one prepares you for. College doesn't prepare you for, because now you have these skills and you have, something to put on your resume, a degree to put on your resume, and you might have internships to put on your resume that you did while you're in college, but still that first opportunity after college and figuring out what your life is going to look like is difficult, because often you're like, do I stay in the town where I'm living? Which often when you're in college, you're just there. It's a college town. You're not trying to stay there, but you have to figure out, where do I want to go? And there's also so many things you have to think about that I don't think you even consider. I have friends that when they're out of college, they did things out of like necessity. Like my friend Alyssa, I think she said when she left college, she moved to Chicago, and I think her dad was living there, so she lived with him for like just a little bit, and then she took the first job she could, and then lived in like this tiny apartment, and she wasn't making very good money. Like it was good money, I guess, considering just right outside of college. She goes, I did it just because I had to, and she didn't want to live in Chicago, and she did that out of necessity. And there's some things too that like, I worked at Target still after I graduated because I was trying to figure out what did that next job look like. And, I think no one really trained you for what to prepare for. There's so many things to consider in that time period.
I mean, there's a lot to consider, especially when it comes to, if especially if you don't know where you want to be.
Yeah.
And you have, not to say you have a short amount of time to do so, but I feel like for most people that I know, some figured that out quite immediately.
Yeah.
And did what they had to do. Like they either moved or they switched career fields or whatever the case was. But yeah, it's difficult. It's not easy. It isn't.
Yeah, I remember hearing, I think I mentioned this in the last podcast episode about like growing professionally, but Rainn Wilson, I think his name is, who plays Dwight from The Office, was saying that your 20s should be like, this, period of your life where you're just testing and like trying different things. But I feel like, and I don't want to make this excuse, but a lot of people don't have that opportunity. I guess for me, I'm always eager to figure out what is my path going to look like. And it starts now, like the sooner, the better. And to be honest, I wish I could look at it. I do look at it as a time to try different things and be open to different opportunity and all that. But there's also like the necessity of needing money, of needing to provide for yourself. And I think that's balancing those two is so difficult. And I also think, back to your points, like it's not easy to figure out like what you want to do. Some days I don't even know what I want. Like when it comes to like the bigger picture, the 5-year plan, the 10-year plan, that's hard to for me, it's always hard to plan for because what I want changes, I feel, significantly. And I don't know if everyone deals with this, but I feel like what I want is always changing. I have, I guess, some fundamental things I want when it comes to like what I want out of my job and like what I want out of my life and, you know, what I want my future to look like. I have these general ideas, but I also have changed my mind quite frequently on some things.
I mean, I feel like that it definitely does change over time, especially based on the your circumstances, I think, is a part of it too, you know, because if you need to make a drastic change in order for you to either get somewhere or you need something in order to survive or whatnot, like you're going to, you know, I mean, I wouldn't associate this with like fight or flight or anything like that, but it would be more of a you would quickly like figure out like this is what I need to do in order to do X, Y, Z, whatever the case is. And for some, yeah, you're right. I mean, it might be like along the way that when they make that change that they realize like, actually, I want to do this now because I liked this or I didn't like this, you know, which is why like a lot of people will like go into a career field and be like, oh, I want to, you know, be a teacher. And then like they start teaching and they're like, I don't want to be a teacher. I'd rather do something else. And then they don't really know what they want yet. But
I think that can be so overwhelming though, not knowing what you want.
no, I mean, it can be. For some, it gives people anxiety.
It gives me anxiety.
Yeah, for some, it's like they'll deal with it later type of thing, you know, like kind of like whether it's ignoring it or whatever the case is. Yeah, like it's not. I mean, again, we're speaking from our own perspectives here.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone else like probably who's watching or hearing this probably can has their own thing that they've gone through where they're like, man, like that was difficult or that was easy or I wouldn't mind doing it again or whatever the case is.
I think too, I remember being in college and not really knowing what I wanted to study and not really thinking so much about the future.
Yeah.
Which is so funny because I feel like I'm always focused on the future now. But I always look back and wish I would have thought more decisions out because it would have helped me in like the long run. But the part of the issue is that you learn things through experiences. Sometimes those experiences you realize, oh man, I made a mistake. Mm-hmm. I probably shouldn't have done that, but I also couldn't have known that it was going to work out this way. So I think that's kind of where you feel growing pains too, is every decision, like you'll see the impact of that decision that you make. And some of those decisions aren't going to be great decisions. And that's just part of life. And I think that that's something I'm experiencing right now is looking back, I'm like, I would have done this differently knowing what I know now. And I would have been smarter about this. But I also realize, and my friend Alyssa is always telling me this, you couldn't have known. Like, you couldn't have known. You acted with the knowledge that you had at the time, or lack of knowledge that you had at the time. And now, yeah, you are seeing the impact of that decision, but it's not anything that can be fixed, you know?
Yeah, it's like with anything that we do in life, there's like, you know, consequences, or there's obviously a growing pain with that, with whatever that was, you know, like for some people, like if they moved across the country for a new job and then they're like, man, that sucked. Like, I don't know why I made that decision. For some, like that was like the best thing they ever did, you know, that like whether they moved from like one state to another and not knowing, and like just knowing like there's something over here, I'm going to find it, and then boom, and like it changes their lives. And like for some, that was a good decision, but yeah, I mean, it's different with everyone and every action, you know.
Yeah, I think that too. Like, for instance, I think part of like me I felt entering the workforce and like the actual area of work that I wanted to be in, which was marketing, was difficult for me because while I had the degree, I didn't have experience to align with that degree. because I only did one internship in college. I did a communications internship, which is similar to marketing, so it's a little bit experience, but I didn't have hands-on experience with some like platforms and with like, ads or really anything that was going to be valuable to a company. And I'm pretty sure that there was opportunity when I was in college to get an internship that might have provided me with that. But also I think about how I was working full time, and that was, some internships aren't paid, and, I couldn't afford to be unpaid during that time. So, I think about that a lot. And then, I just think about the decisions that I made, whether it was, how logical, illogical they were. And, I try to remember that I did learn from them. I learned from every decision I make. I learned like what not to do in the future. And I think sometimes all you do is learn from the experience. Like you have to experience it yourself to understand like the implications that come from it. But I think that's the hard part. I do think, this is my like personal opinion, that your 20s are the most difficult part of your life. Because everyone says like your 20s are so fun, but I feel like I feel like a lot of people my age, like early 20s, 24s, 25s, we're depressed for one. Like, I think we're overwhelmed, burnout, and trying to do what the world tells us to do, but also trying to follow what we want. And it's just all very confusing, and it's just all difficult. And I don't think life is supposed to be easy, but it definitely is. I feel like I graduated college when I was 22, and now I'm 24, so I'm 2 years out of college. And these 2 years have been so, so, so difficult. And I don't know if anyone else has just experienced that, or, maybe had a different, experience from me. But I feel like your 20s are, while they're supposed to be fun, it feels like so much rides on your 20s, on like figuring your shit out.
Yeah, it's a part of like, growing and growing pains. Specifically, like the topic of this podcast is like figuring out what you need to do for yourself or for those who you take care of, or whatever the case is. Like for some, they may not, like I remember those comments you got on that one of our podcast episodes. I forget which one it was, but yeah, for some it's like you may or may not be able to do what you thought you were passionate about because of the circumstances that you're in, or whatever the case is. So like, yeah, it's just,
I think I struggle with that because I feel like I'm a dreamer, and I watch people in my life do what they had to do, obviously, but like, work themselves to death. And I saw like how unhappy that made them. And I'm not opposed to hard work. Like, I work very hard at my job, and I'm fortunate enough to like what I do and to be in an area of work that I very much enjoy. But I feel, I'll probably get shit for this too, I'm not willing to sacrifice that part, because I was having this conversation with my mom in the car too about, I'm like, because a lot of people will say like my generation or even your generation is lazy, or that they don't want to work. And I told my mom, I was like, I don't think that's the case. For one, there will always be lazy people. There will always be people who don't want to work. But that's not what's happening here. I think that more people are realizing, and this is just my opinion, I don't know for sure, this is my take on this. This is how I feel too. More people are realizing, if I'm going to spend all this time of my life working, say if you work till you're 65, you start work at, say, 22, you graduate college, start work at 22, and you work till you're 65. That's a good chunk of your life. And if you're going to be working so often at these jobs, you might as well enjoy what you're doing, because you're spending a good chunk of your life working. And, sometimes it won't leave you time to pursue other personal passions or have time with family. So you might as well enjoy what you're doing. So my mom was saying that people don't want to work. I was like, I don't think it's that people don't want to work. I think it's just they're looking for something that's going to align with the life that they want. At the end of the day, you do need a means to an end. But I think everyone deserves the opportunity to figure out what else is out there. Mm-hmm. And I think when you're sometimes when you're working at that job that's just a means to an end, you get stuck, and you don't ever leave, because it continues to be a means to end, and you don't have any time to pursue what you want. And life always gets in the way. There's always going to be something stopping you. So I'm kind of go head first and we'll figure out the things later type of person. And yeah, that's just how I feel. That's just really how I feel, because I feel like I'm a dreamer, you're a dreamer, and I also feel like we're on the cusp of something really great. Mm-hmm. So that's just kind of how I feel.
I mean, I feel the same way. We've been putting work into this podcast and all of our other platforms to showcase. Again, we're just talking about our own experiences and stuff like that, or whether it's me on my channel showcasing what I like to do. I love creating stuff for people to enjoy and learn, and I would love to continue doing that. But at the same time, it's being able to enjoy that while you can also do it while doing something else too as well, and also doing it for the right reasons too.
Yeah. I think there's balance. Sorry. I think that everything in life is like a balance. And finding that balance for me that's been the most difficult part for me, because I posted about this on Instagram too. This is actually the reel that we had that did so well this week.
Oh yeah.
Is talking about how my dad taught me to, you work hard and you work harder than anyone else. Nothing's going to be handed to you. And I agree with all those things. I do agree. Nothing is going to be handed to you. I also have, because of that mindset, I have a problem setting boundaries. Some days I'll work till 8 or work till 9 because I feel like that's what I have to do. Even if it's just getting ahead or doing this, I feel like it's just, I have to let people know that I'm putting in everything that I have. And that can be so exhausting for me. And my manager, the thing is, my management team is so understanding, and they don't want me to work myself to death. But yeah, I still feel this need to prove that I'm valuable, that I'm needed, and that I'm going to work until I can't work anymore. And that's been something I've been trying to find balance in my life for, is work-life balance and what that looks like for me. And sometimes for me, that means on this day, I'm logging off at 5 exactly. And I'm going to read, and obviously still making sure my work gets done. But it's setting those boundaries, or, just making sure that I have time to enjoy the things I do, or going on a walk. And that sounds so cheesy and simple, but it really is. It's been so important, especially because we both, we work out of this office, and it can feel so confining at times. And it's oh man, I just need to get out. I need to get up. And
that's why I like leaving the door open.
Yeah.
Even though sometimes you don't. So.
Well, I only leave the door closed when I have meetings, so
yeah.
I don't annoy Noah with the people talking on my screen. But yeah, it can be so it's hard. No one talks about how hard work from home is too. It really is. I love it. There are so many things I love it to make the cons just not even compare, but it is kind of hard sometimes to focus, or sometimes it's just you feel wow, I haven't left my home all this week. So it's nice to get out there. But yeah, and I also think that I've just been experiencing growing it's funny that growing pains is a topic because Mike kind of talked about this too, about how like a startup company has growing pains. And like I feel everyone in our company can speak to those growing pains. They've experienced it. Me and Harlan, for instance, he's like the other SEO and content project manager that we have. We're currently helping build out a team. And there's a lot of growing pains when we're training people to do what we do. And yeah, it's difficult, and you start to feel it. Like you start to feel how overwhelming it can be, but it's just part of the process. And I think something that helps you through those growing pains is just patience. Having patience, and also having like kind of just the mindset that we're gonna get through this, we're gonna work it out, and like this, what we're doing now is leading to something bigger later. You know?
Yeah, the work that you're doing now is going to obviously help you get past those growing pains.
Caesar always repeats exactly what I said. Just the exact
I'm emphasizing
just like in a different way. It's like when you're writing a paper and you say the same thing. Oh, or it's like what's it called? In The Emperor's New Groove. I don't think
I've never seen The Emperor's New
Groove. That is freaking crazy. But he's like, oh, the poison for Cusco. Cusco's poison. The poison meant to kill Cusco. Like saying the same thing over and over again. And we used to make jokes about when you're writing an essay, you just write it like that to increase the word count. There's always word count criteria when you're ever writing an essay in college. But yeah, what was I saying?
About how I
I know you repeated. What was it I was saying that you repeated?
It was about growing pains and how
they're leading to a bigger, it'll all be okay, and it's leading to a bigger, better thing.
Yeah, whatever the outcome is, like something bigger than. I mean, I feel like, especially with what you guys do at where you work at Composely, I feel like you guys are constantly like something new's happening, and I think with any company like that, it's always like that, and there's always going to be those growing pains. I know I experienced them firsthand when I was working for a company, and that there was a lot of struggle in trying to find good people,
Yeah, I think it goes back to it's all a balance, but I also think too that working at a startup has taught me so much. And it's also made me, I think, a more patient person, and a person that's more open to change and more like a sponge. I just absorb the stuff. You kind of just have to go with it and trust the process so much. For me, that was something I thought would be so difficult, and sometimes it is, but it's kind of changed who I am, but it's kind of changed who I am, and not in a bad way, but it's made me see not just the work I do in a different light, but just how businesses work and run differently, and not in a bad way either, in a good way. I've learned so much, and I definitely thought it wasn't something I could do for the longest, because I feel like I am the most impatient person, and I do get frustrated easily sometimes, and there are days where I do have to calm myself down, like Sunny, like don't get so worked up about this, but yeah, and they do say that the startup environment isn't for everyone, because it's really not. Like, it's truly, truly, truly not for everyone. But I think there's so much to learn. I feel like if you can survive in a startup environment, you can survive anywhere. Because it's kind of like when I worked at Target, which I always bring up, the store I worked at was what they consider a lower volume store here on the east side. Like, it still was pretty significantly high compared to my last store, but we didn't have as much staff, and like you had to do so much with so little. So I feel like working at Target prepared me for the role that I have now, in that you're trying to work with as much as you have. Granted, we do hire when we not when we desperately need it, but when we need it, when there's, when everything aligns and we can add that person to our team. But it still is like, being flexible, wearing a lot of hats, and, making the most of every hour and all of your time. And yeah, I think that's just when you are able to work with less, then when you have more, you're able to even maximize all of that too, if that makes sense. It's also like similar to like, I work in SEO, so our whole goal is like organic traffic and organic keywords and versus paying for them. And I feel like when you work in organic, like SEO, working in paid ads becomes a little bit easier. I know people have made that transition. But yeah, there's just, it's all patience too, which I did say I lack patience. Caesar knows I'm like the most impatient person ever, which I don't think people would guess. I feel like I kind of hide it well when it comes to work, but I'm pretty impatient.
Well, I think when it comes to the work you do, or any work that I've ever seen you do, it's not to say that you're not patient. It's more of like your lack of patience is what drives you to finish what you need to do, because you're like, I need to finish this, which is I think one of the reasons why you tend to work more like after 5. You're like up until 8 o'clock because you don't want to not have it done because you need to have a bunch of stuff done the following day. So I think because you're not, I don't know if that has anything to do with it.
I don't think that has to do with patience. I think that more has to do with like
drive,
my work ethic and drive, and like
grits.
Also, yeah, grit. I got a lot of grit. But also recently too, I'm constantly motivated, despite the growing pains and sometimes the feeling of being uncomfortable and not knowing, which you can feel a lot in like the startup environment, or especially with the work I do. When you're working with SEO, sometimes you don't see the results of your labor automatically, but I've had like 2 meetings where they were like, we're seeing great results, like what you're doing is working, and it kind of validated that like, one, I'm a genius. I'm not a genius, but the work that I do matters, and it's helping these people, and I'm learning, and it's given me insight into my own growth over the past like almost year. Coming in at the end of October, I will have been with Composely for a year. And it's honestly been the fastest year of my life, to be honest. And when I think about how far I've come from like my first day to even now, it's like a complete 360. And my role has changed like a complete 360 too. And it makes all this pain and the struggle worth it. Like at the time you feel it so hard in your soul, you feel it so much, but when you see the fruits of your labor and when you see how far you've come, it makes everything worth it in that moment. I almost cried on a call with a client because they were telling me and our client success manager how well things were going and how happy they were. And I honestly told them, I was like, this is like the best meeting I've had. Not that like we have bad meetings, but like it was because it was my first meeting of the morning, and I was like, this is a great way to start my day. Like, I'm so happy that this is working for you, that you're loving it, and that we're getting you what you want. And yeah, it was very validating. Obviously I love validation, but it was so, yeah, it made every stress and every long night and every like tear shed worth it, and just continue to give me the motivation to keep going and to continue to learn. I think when you're like growing too, I think the most important thing is that you always continue learning. You're never done learning. I consider myself a student for life, and that sounds cheesy, but I would love to be in school forever. Honestly, I would. And I don't think it's because I want to like know everything, but I just like learning. I feel like when you learn about like even the most random subject, you learn more about yourself.
I mean, you learn about obviously what you're studying and whatever it is that you're looking to learn. But then like if something is difficult in that process,
yeah,
you're going to realize like, oh man, like I never knew I liked this, or I never knew I didn't like this. You know, for example, for you, I remember I was trying to teach you how to use Premiere Pro, and I think, at least for me, let me know if I'm wrong, is I got that you didn't have enough patience to like actually try to fully. I mean, you had a vision in your head for an edit,
Yeah.
and then when it didn't look the way you wanted it to look, like you kind of, not to say you gave up, but it was more of like
I get frustrated.
You got frustrated.
Yeah. Well, I think the other thing too is with that, I remember that experience. You and I are at such different video editing levels. Like, I'm very much beginner, you're very much advanced. And when it comes, I feel like you do a good job explaining, but I also like, when you were first teaching me, you were just showing me, and I was like, wait, no, like, I need to do it so I can remember.
Yeah, not like me.
Yeah, I was like, I need to do it because that's the only way I'll remember. So, and it's just hard. Video editing's hard. So it was like, it was difficult because I thought it would be much easier than it was, and it's not. And I've had to take a lot of time. Honestly, it's going to take a lot of time for me to get to where you are.
I know, definitely, like, talking about growing pains, man, I had a lot of growing pains learning how to edit video with multiple different platforms for the past 5 years.
But I think that you're like so willing to learn. Like, I know that it's not easy, but I also think that you're more open to learning and like figuring stuff out. Even like when you're working during the week, you're looking up, how do I do this? Even if it's just for one edit, you're like, oh, this might help me later, so it's might as well learn it now. And me, I like to learn, but there comes a point where I just get very overwhelmed. And I'm trying to fix that too. I'm trying to not be overwhelmed. I'm trying to I try to break things down so it's not as scary to me. Wow. Yeah, I'm basically not a good video editor. I don't have
I don't think you're not a good video editor. I think most people that have some sort of creative, they like to be creative, whether it's drawing, whether it's animations. That means you're already doing something in video editing, but like you can really translate that over into something where you can create like a really nice video about whatever it is that you do. You know, especially TikTok nowadays, like TikTok Shorts, Instagram Reels. Like,
I think my issue is that I'm really great at creating the vision and creating the idea.
Yeah.
And that story. It's just the execution part is what I'm working on, is making it look exactly like what's in my mind, and also being able to better explain what that looks like in words, like explaining to you, and I think that's a difficult thing with creative endeavors, is creativity is very subjective, and when I explain something, you might think, oh, I understand, but you're seeing it differently in your mind. So Caesar and I, like, even when it comes to the podcast editing, we'll go back and forth, I'll review and be like, no, I didn't. I'll tell him one thing, and he's like, but I did what you asked. I'm like, no, I was thinking this. So I have to, like, better explain what I was thinking. And it's difficult because I think that's difficult too, is like Caesar works with a bunch of different not types of video editing, but like he's edited videos for a bunch of different industries, and what people want that to look like varies. So when you're working with different clients in different industries, the video edits vary, and getting the look that they're looking for can be difficult because it's just a creative endeavor, and I've met like a couple video editors, and everyone has their own process. They have their own idea of what good looks like. So I think that's a difficult thing with even with writing. Like, you know, Composely is a content marketing company. We work with words, and we work with a bunch of freelance writers, and you know, some clients have writers right off the bat, they love the writing. Others have more particular nuances of what they consider good and what they consider great writing. And obviously there's standard like English and grammar rules, but when it comes to writing, it really, again, it's subjective. Like, yeah. I mean, I think I'm a pretty good writer, but I also don't think everyone would think so either. When it comes to my style and how I like to write. I'm hoping, I just wrote Caesar's cover letter yesterday, and I think it stands out, and I really loved the sound of it. So
it did a really good job with it. It sounds really nice.
Great. So if anyone comes across it online when he's applying, just let me know. It's gonna be Amazing. I remember I wrote a review for Compulsely because obviously I love working there, and I wrote it on Glassdoor, to boost star ratings. And I showed it to my manager. He was like, "Sonny, this is so like." He was like, "This is good." He was like, "It's also kind of cheesy." I was like, "That was what I was going for." But yeah, I think that like learning just helps you. It's directly aligned with growth. You're never done learning. You're never going to know everything,
And I don't think anybody can say they know everything because there's always something new to learn. What?
Is that all you have to say?
Yeah. No, I mean, it's just a matter of fact, There's so many things to learn from it. Just look at every major you can think of, history, the arts. Then there's like technical, mechanical stuff. And yeah, you can learn so much about all that stuff. And still, there's always something to learn.
I think even within fields, like for instance with SEO, especially with all these stupid Google algorithm updates, you always have stuff to learn. You always have stuff to adjust and work with. And even, for instance, I only work in one section of SEO, like creating blog articles. There's a whole side of technical SEO that I know about, but I've never actually had hands-on experience with. So I think that's my next thing is I really want to learn the technical side of SEO, which is a little bit more difficult, I would say.
And that stuff changes too.
It changes and it's difficult. But I also think that's the beautiful thing. I love a challenge. I love when someone tells me I can't do it because I'm like, watch me. Like I'm going to obliterate this. I feel like when you're not challenged, you just grow complacent.
Then that's the part. If you're not, you get stagnant. We've talked about that before. Yeah.
I hate that feeling. I hate it so much. Who was I talking to where I was saying I need to stop saying the word hate?
Me.
No, but we were talking to someone else.
You were?
Yeah. Was it in Florida?
It might have been on the trip. Yeah. I know I've told you though how I don't like using that word, but then I use it sometimes anyways.
I need to stop using the word hate, but I strongly dislike feeling complacent or stagnant in like any area of my life. And I mean right now I'm kind of feeling stuck, to be honest. Because we have like Caesar and I have visions and goals, and I think a lot of things are happening right now that were in our visions and goals. And we're trying to figure out what this next year looks like and how to get out of our current situation. And sometimes it can be very overwhelming. And I don't know if you guys know this or realize this. I'm a very emotional person. And sometimes I feel like the only thing I can do is shut down and I just don't deal with the problem. I don't know what the next best step is. So I kind of like just shut down mentally and emotionally. And yeah, I feel like it can be difficult when you feel stuck of like, okay, how do we get unstuck? What's the next best step to take? And like, what does the next 30 days look like? What does the next 60 days look like? And how are we going to achieve what we want to achieve? Mm-hmm. And well, I have hope and I believe that, I believe in me and you. I also get so depressed and down in the dumps because I feel like life is just hard. There's no better way to explain it. And I truly, some days I don't know how people deal with like this weight of just what feels like the world on your shoulders. It was like really bumming me out these past couple days. And it comes in waves too. Like, it's just, so I think that's part of growing. That's been part of my growing pains is dealing with like my emotions and all of this too, because I'm trying to deal with like not being so depressed and anxiety and I'm trying to deal with all of that, and it's not simple. It's very complex because it's not like a consistent thing, like I take antidepressants and lately I feel like they're not working. So I think that's something that's also been like one of our challenges, because I think to myself, like, am I going to feel like this forever? Is this always going to be something that I feel? Am I going to be like truly happy when we reach like our destination? And to be honest, I'm scared for the answer, because I don't know. I don't know if there's just something like wrong with me, you know?
I mean, I think we all have problems. I've told you about that. It's part of, it's still on the subject of growing pains, like we all have things we have to, not to say grow out of. I don't think people grow out of like feeling anxious or if depression and all that. You can't really grow out of it. You can find ways to deal with it.
Yeah.
And I mean, saying like deal with it's kind of like in a bad way, but find ways to mitigate it or to make it.
No, but essentially is like deal with it and like
find answers,
cope with it.
Yeah.
And, there's coping mechanisms. And I think the other thing that I just thought of when you were talking was growing pains also means like growing out of things and growing out of people. And I think that's uncomfortable, is realizing, some people aren't meant to be in your life or aren't good for you. Meghan Trainor released a song, and this is one of my favorite songs to date because it speaks volumes, but it says, "Please don't make promises that you can't keep. Your best intentions end up hurting me." And then it ends up saying, "I know we're blood, but this love is bad for me." And she's talking about like, she addressed like, she's talking about like family. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something you're never prepared for too, is that people that sometimes that you want in your life just aren't good for you. They aren't good for what you need at that time. And not to say like in a transactional way, but like for your mental health. And, I think that's something that I've realized is, in a way, I've had to kind of step back from people that I didn't feel super loved by, mm-hmm. or that genuinely cared. And I've said this a lot over the past couple weeks, but if they wanted to, they would. If someone wanted to be there for you, they will. If they don't show up, it's not a reflection of you, it's a reflection of them. And I think that I've just had instances in my life where people just didn't show up for me, and it wouldn't have been that hard to show up and be there. So I'm just kind of going with the if they wanted to, they would mindset. I mean, what's your take
on that?
Yeah.
I mean, we've talked about this before, not in the podcast, but I mean, I feel like, yeah, part of it is if they really wanted to reach out, or whatever the case is, whoever it is, like even people that are listening to this, like if someone who cares wants to reach out, they would. But at the same time, I feel like it's like reciprocating, so it kind of goes both ways.
Yeah, no, I think it's not like, oh, you do, like, it is reciprocal. But like if you're always, it's like that quote, like, don't, I don't know, I can't remember the quote, but it's like, yeah, it's very reciprocal. Like, but if you're always showing up for someone, always being there and like giving people benefit of the doubt, and then they can't do the same, it's like, at what point is it too much? And I know some people that's just the person that they are. They'll always show up no matter what they're receiving, but it can be exhausting, because I think to myself too, I want to be the person that's filled with kindness and that's joyful and that is just, an overall good person. But I feel like in order to be that person, I need to surround myself with people that would do those things for me, that do care about me, that are showing me love, and that are showing up when I need them. So, but I think, that's just my personal opinion. I know some people feel differently, and that's okay. That's just how I have learned to kind of, live my life right now. Mm-hmm. And I don't think it's cutting people out of your life forever, but, because I don't like the idea of cutting people out of my life either. I think I don't like that. It's just as simple as that. But I also do think that you can separate yourself until, until you feel comfortable bringing people back into your life.
Yeah, and there comes a time with that. There's a time and place for all that. And
Yeah.
for everyone, it's different. You don't do it when you're ready.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I mean, sometimes I don't know if I'll ever be ready. It's all about growth, and I think I'm always going to need to do a lot of growing.
I think we all do.
Yeah. And I'm not a perfect person. I really am not. And I'm like looking in the mirror at my flaws every day, and not like my physical flaws, but thinking, who am I today, and who do I want to be, and how do I get there? So, but people don't always see that either. Mm-hmm. People don't see what happens behind the scenes or the work that you're putting in, and
they don't have to. That's the thing, is like a part of it's like people think like you showcase everything on the, to everyone to see. It's like, no, I mean, unless that's what you want to do.
I mean, you can if you
want to.
I don't have any like hate to people that want to showcase their accomplishments, because I feel
it's fine.
I think for me, I've done that in the past, like showcase my accomplishments, because I felt like that was, I don't know, you're just proud of yourself. I was very proud of some of the accomplishments I had, and I love sharing those like things that I'm proud of with the world. Like, for instance, I share a lot with my work team. So, like, I shared my maid of honor speech that I said at my sister's wedding with them, because I was like, oh, I was so proud of this beautifully written speech. And I share the podcast with them because I'm very proud of them. And but I don't think it's like you should do it for like the validation either. Like, if you're just looking for validation, like do it for you because you want to. And a lot of time it's not like visible to people who aren't even in your life, or even people that are, like, they don't see that work you're doing, and it's really not up to them. If you, at the end of the day, if you're proud of the person that you are, and like that's all that you can ask for. And I think that I'm constantly striving to be someone that I'm proud of, and right now that's all that I care about, is that I'm proud of me, and that I'm creating an impact in this world. And that's a lot of kind of pressure to put on myself, because I just want to, like, I don't know, I want to make a huge impact. I want to be remembered, I think. You want
to create something or make something out of yourself that, like, is bigger than yourself. Yeah. Yeah. That's a good thing to.
Well, people would be like, oh, the girl Sunny, she did that. Like, she created this. And so that's kind of what I want to do, have been like, oh, this person was key in getting this to where it is. So that's kind of my mindset. But, there's also a song called Growing Pains. I really like it. It's by Alessia Cara. She says, my growing pains are keeping me up at night, which they do. They keep me up at night. I'm like freaking insomniac now, because all I'm thinking about is how to get to where I want to be. It's hard. I don't know. Caesar doesn't stay up at night about those things, though. He just sleeps.
Sometimes.
He's just like.
Sometimes I can't sleep. That's when I can't sleep. So, yeah.
Your mind's just going. But yeah, I think, what would you say to anyone going through a period of just growing pains?
I mean, don't give up.
Don't.
No, don't. Shut it down. That's an Office reference for those that didn't know that. But I mean, I would say just don't give up. I mean, if there's some kind of drastic change going on in your life, whatever the case is, just don't give up on the things that you love to do. That's the thing, is you should always stay passionate about what you want to do. Even though sometimes the circumstances that you might be in may not allow you to do those things, you should still find a way to do them. Yeah, find a way to do what you're passionate about, whether it's writing, whether it's, for all I know, one of you out there may be passionate about bike riding, like 100-kilometer bike rides, and running, creating art, whatever the case is, just find the time to do it.
I feel like it's all about believing in yourself. Mm-hmm. Sounds so cheesy. But it really is. If you can believe that you can do it. I'm sorry. It just reminded me. I went to an elementary school called Dreamland, and we were the Dreamland Dragons. And our motto was dream, believe, and achieve. If you can dream it, you can achieve it. I do think it comes down to believing in your abilities, and sometimes it's so hard to believe in yourself. I'm like, am I capable of this, or also am I good at this? And it honestly just takes trying and being open to opportunities. And when you feel uncomfortable, like, don't back away. Some people back away when things get uncomfortable because it's a feeling of just like, ugh, gross. I don't want to feel this, so they stop. But I think you grow the most by being uncomfortable, by putting yourself in these uncomfortable situations. And I know it's so much easier said than done. Like, I say this being in the position where I've been very uncomfortable in lots of times in my life, and my gut reaction is to leave, put yourself out of the uncomfortable. But the only way to really move forward and grow is to just power through, because the other side is bright and shiny rainbow with a pot of gold. I think of it I guess this is not, maybe a forest filled with spiders that you're going through. But at the end, the reward is there. So, yeah, just get uncomfortable. Don't listen to what the world tells you, believe in you. You are the master of your destiny. But yeah, it's all about believing in yourself and going after what you want and not what other people want. And yeah, that's probably the best advice I can give right now. But we're so glad if you listen to our podcast. We're growing. We got 22 whole subscribers on YouTube. 22. Yeah, we're so glad if you listen. This is something that Caesar and I love to do. We're growing and learning with you guys. We are not perfect people. We're also not experts. We're just experiencing life right now. Especially in a post-pandemic world. Isn't that so crazy to say that? Post-pandemic. Crazy that it even happened. And yeah, we just want to share this kind of journey with you. The good, bad, and the ugly, unfortunately. So thank you for listening. We have episodes every Monday, usually pretty early in the morning, so you can listen or watch on YouTube. We're available on all podcast platforms for the most part. And yeah, we're glad to share this with you. So this has been Growing Together with me, Sunny Vasquez.
And me, Cesar Santos.
And we hope you tune in next week.
See you guys later.